To be introducing our next speaker. Jeff is a forward-thinking CEO and captivating speaker. He's fueled by a passion for cultivating high-performance individuals, teams, and organizations. His professional journey spans 25 years, and he's currently serving as CEO of Primera, a cooperative specializing in independent distribution for the green industry. Today, Jeff will delve into the pressures of performing while fostering a healthy, innovative, and resilient organizational culture. And after this, I'm going to see if he wants to come work in HR with me. Jeff, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Alex. Statistics would tell us that 1 out of every 4 of us in this room, and including those in the room next door and the rest of everyone in this hotel, suffers from this medical diagnosis. In fact, in 2019, the World Health Organization added this diagnosis to their 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases. I think that makes it formal that it's actually considered a disease. Any thoughts on what this disease might be? Because 1 in 4 of us in this room has it, according to statistics. Anyone? When I tell you, you're going to know. Diagnosis burnout, right? It's become a little bit of a hot topic. We're kind of familiar with it. It's becoming culturally appropriate to talk about it in our organizations now. And McKinsey and Company says that burnout is, well, I don't even really care for this definition of it because to me, this is burnout, right? Anyone ever felt like any of these pictures? And at its worst, you probably felt more like this one. More statistics on burnout. To tell you this is real, Account Temps did a study. And they said that 96% of senior management felt that their teams were suffering from burnout. Now I want you to sit on that statistic for a moment because the first statistic I said was 1 in 4, so 25% of employees. But 96% of senior management said that our teams were suffering from burnout. 36% of those employees said they reported cognitive weariness, and 44% said that they were suffering from physical fatigue. I think burnout's for real. But if you're like me, and you put everything you hear through the BS meter, right? Is this for real? Do I believe everything? I think all the statistics we just shared with you, I think it's BS. You want to know why? Because I think it's worse. Only 25%? Only 25%? Those are the only 25% who agreed to answer the question honestly, I would assume, right? How many of you would take a phone call from McKinsey and they say, hey, do you feel burnout? And you'd be like, yeah, I'm burnt out, man. This is crazy. No, we would kind of be like, well, depending on what we're doing in our career, how we'd answer that question. There's really 2 reasons I think the statistics on burnout are really BS. The first one is what we're taught on work-life balance. And the second reason is around some experiences that I'll share with you this afternoon. So let's hang out on the first one about what we're taught. By a show of hands, how many of you at any point in your career have talked about, read about, learned about work-life balance? Every hand is up. Keep them up. Keep them up. Now, how many of you, if you asked your spouse, your partner, your kids, your friends, that your work and your life with them is balanced, keep your hands up if they would say, yeah, they're balanced. Every hand goes down. Work-life balance is BS to begin with because balance inherently tells you that you're spending equal time. And we don't. You're beginning to hear more and more people get away from work-life balance and talk about work-life harmony. I think that's a good term that could bring some focus to what this means. I like work-life presence. That whether I'm in my work mode or whether I'm in my family mode, spending time with my wife, my kids, whatever it might be, that I'm just present in that moment. And that presence will take away the need to compare whether I'm spending equal time with either. Does that make sense? The second reason I call BS on those statistics is from a lot of my experience. So I've spent 27 years in the workforce. I spent 22 years of those with Stanley Black & Decker. I'm a legacy Black & Decker guy, now Stanley Black & Decker, but I spent 21 of the 22 years on the commercial construction side of DeWalt Power Tools. When I left there, I started speaking with John Gordon, opened up my own training and consulting company, and then 4 years ago, I had the privilege to join Primera and lead this industry. But if I were to be honest with you, the majority of this career was spent like this, with my hair on fire, the brain going, burning the candle at both ends, right? All these things that we hear when we think about burnout, that was the majority of my career. In fact, some of you in this room may know me from my career at Black & Decker, Stanley, and you go, oh, but I thought he had it all together. Or some of you go, I didn't even know he worked there. Because on the outside, if someone were to call me, if McKinsey were to have called me and said, hey, we want to talk to you about burnout, I'd said, burnout. I got the perfect life. Here's a picture of my family, my wife, my youngest and oldest daughter, and in this picture, she's engaged to the gentleman at the top there. Clearly, I got it all going on, right? And my career, are you kidding me? 11 jobs in Stanley Black & Decker in 22 years. Every 2 years, I was taking on a new position. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I'd become one of the youngest vice presidents in Stanley Black & Decker. Burnout? No way. I had everything going on right for me until I didn't. So I was in the New York metro market for a week. Typically, I'd go in on a Sunday, drive home on a Friday, trying to avoid traffic. Home for me at that point was Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Again, I told you, I got everything going on. Not a bad place to live, right? I'm making the trip from Manhattan to Cape Cod. It's about 4.5 to 5 hours. Typical. After a 10-hour drive home, I pull into the driveway. And as you can imagine, my patience at that point might have been a little thin. May not have been in the best mood after 10 hours of driving, right? How many of you here are pet owners? Raise your hand for pet owners. All right, keep your hand up if you're a real pet owner and you own a dog. Okay. No disrespect to the cat people. I happen to be a dog person. If you've got pets, what's the thing you look forward to, whether you've been gone for 5 minutes to get the mail at the bottom of the driveway, or whether you've been gone all week on a business trip, is when pets see you, they tell you how much they love. Like there is no one more excited for you to come home than your pets. Am I right? So here I am, 10 hours drive home, come in the garage door, got this hallway that leads down, open up, no dogs. So that was kind of awkward. Maybe they're outside, maybe they're upstairs, what have you. So I continue to walk down the hallway. I get into our kitchen/family room. The TV's not on, nobody's in the kitchen. Now I'm getting a little bit of panic mode, like something's happened, right? I turn into what is our dining room. It's not a formal dining room, it's just a farm table where we had dinner every night. And there's my wife and my daughter, and clearly they had been crying. Well, I was now at this age where the first thing that goes to mind is, are everybody safe? Everybody good? Like Michelle, who was living in Maryland at the time, they're good. I go, are my parents, are they still okay, right? She's like, yeah, no, they're fine. I go, maybe not care as much, but how's your family? Your family good too, right? She said, yeah, she's good. I said, oh my God, then if everybody's fine, what's going on? And my wife looks at me, clearly not reading the room of all the frustration that I had been through in the last 10 hours. And with a quiver, she says, Jeff, this isn't the life you promised us. Unless something changes, we want out. Well, in my 10 hours of frustration, I had two options. I could clearly respect this decision that she had and want to learn about it, or you could do what I did. I said, okay, that's good to know. And I did the worst thing that any parent could ever do, ever imagine. When I hear myself tell the story, I just get frustrated, but it's part of the story. I stepped away from my wife. I walked over to my 12-year-old daughter. I said, Taylor, you don't agree with Mom, do you? Brilliant move that was, right? And without missing a beat, Taylor, she doesn't quiver like my wife does. She just lets out that one giant crocodile tear that just drips down the side of her face. And she said, no, this isn't the life you promised, Dad. Well, so now I have another opportunity. I could respond, I could think about what they have to say, or I could do what I did. Pretty good track record. I said, oh, that's very interesting. I said, so this beautiful house that we live in, Lise, the nice car that you drive, Taylor, the private school that you're in, we live on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. You guys don't have an appreciation for all that I've provided for you? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to leave you guys alone. I'm going to go down into the basement, and when you're done thinking about all the privileges that you've had because of what I do, you come and get me. You hear that? For any of you who aren't married or don't have kids yet, this is a great learning experience. Jot that down in your notebook of things not to do. So I proceed to go down to the basement. And I'm like, all right, it's Friday night. They'll be down before they go to bed. They'll come to their realizations. Now, when I tell this story, most people think this is the basement I went down to. This is not the basement I went down to. This is the basement I went down to. An unfinished basement full of boxes that had not been unpacked. How many people here have ever moved in their careers, or even just on your own? So this was the 6th time we moved. So those of you who had your hands up, you'll appreciate this, because when you move, right, take this down. If you've never moved before, jot this down. When you move, it's a tremendous opportunity to get rid of stuff that you don't use. Or you can do what we do and continue to pack it up and move along with you and never open it. So these are all boxes, most of them that had probably moved 2 or 3 times with us, that we'd never opened when we moved into a new house, but they were down here. So that was my Friday night. Saturday, I wake up and I'm going, they didn't come down to get me. By the way, I'm on a sleeping bag on an air mattress in the basement. They didn't come down to get me. So now I'm getting a little bit more perturbed. So now I'm literally at the basement stairs, peeking underneath to see if I can see their feet. Like, are they down here? Are they almost coming time to get me? Well, kind of quickly I realized I don't think they were coming to get me. But I wasn't giving up. I was going to stay down there as long as I needed to. But in this basement, one of those boxes had books written on it. I had nothing else to do. There was no TV. There was no ESPN playing for me to watch for two straight days. So I cracked open the box, and in that box was a book. And it wasn't just any book. It was actually the book that I got for my college graduation. Now, I could take you down a different path. I actually thought I was getting a 1976 CJ7 to refurbish with my dad for college graduation. But instead, I got a book, right? But it wasn't any book. It was my dad's book. It was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. Anyone familiar? Arguably the greatest leadership book ever written. But it was my dad's book, and for years that he had used this, and he had made notes in the margins and took the opportunity to share different things inside of those. And so I started to read it. And all of a sudden, I could just kind of feel within my heart, within my mind, that things were starting to change. As I was starting to pause and reflect on the things that I had shared with my family about this opportunity that I took them up to New England, I told my wife, who had never been north of the Mason-Dixon line, I said, babe, they want us to move to New England. I know you're probably not familiar with it. I grew up in Connecticut, so I was pretty familiar with it. I said, but they're letting us move wherever. I said, so I'm going to take you to the Caribbean of the Northeast. I'm going to take you to Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Now, if anyone has ever been to Cape Cod and the Caribbean, you know the only thing they have in water is sand and water. Other than that, there's pretty much nothing. I didn't tell her about the winters. I didn't tell her about the snow. I didn't tell her about the cold water. But she agreed to go. So I think that might have been where I already started kind of creating this atmosphere that wasn't going to be accurate for what life was going to be. So I'm reading this book. I'm kind of reflecting. And let me fast forward to where we are with you today. That time that I spent in that basement, I came up Sunday night, so it was a little over 48 hours. And I had to retune everything. It began to put in place what had become for me this impact philosophy that I want to share with you today. How many of you have one of these at home? All right, the rest of you probably, if I put this one up, you go, all right, I have one of those. You're either yellow or you're red typically, right? Does anybody know the difference between a drill driver and an impact wrench? If you do, I'll share it with you anyway. Back in the 70s, Ingersoll Rand had an assembly line, and before everything was cordless like you see here, they were using tools on the assembly line, and the people using those tools, they were having fatigue, and they were actually being injured from the tools. And the accessories that were in the tool to actually fasten the things during the assembly line were breaking like crazy. So an engineer took that tool and he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to spec down the mechanics of the tool, meaning we're going to slow the mechanics of this tool down, which will reduce the user fatigue. but it's going to create a harder and faster force to actually do the job faster. That philosophy, right, of all the things I took away of 22 years within Stanley Black & Decker, as I watched the commercial market move from a drill driver to an impact wrench and impact driver, it really was the premise for what I refer to as the impact philosophy. Because doesn't it just make sense that if we can slow down and avoid burnout, if we can learn the skills and develop the habits and create processes, that we can achieve greater and faster results? Now, hopefully when I say that to you, you go, yeah, that makes sense. But if I said it to you differently, like, hey, I want you to do less so you can achieve more, most high performers, which all of you are because you've made a decision to come to this conference to better yourself and what you are doing, go, wait a minute, do less to achieve more? Doesn't make sense, does it? So what I want to do with you is for the next 20, 25 minutes or so, what I share with you, I just ask two things. Come into it open-minded. Don't have any biases. Because what I'm going to share with you is probably not brand new, but maybe just a slightly different perspective of things that you've heard or learned or even tried to implement in your own life. And if you do that, my commitment to you is I can 100% guarantee that everything I say will not resonate with you. But I can also 100% guarantee that at least one thing I say will resonate with you. And focus on that when we leave here. As part of that commitment, at the end of each of the philosophies, I'm going to have an action page. And these are just going to be some thoughts and ideas of things that have worked well for me, have worked well for people that I've engaged through this process, and people that I've used as mentors to help understand how to go along this journey. And so it'll just be some key actions that you could take and implement within your own world. So let's start it off. The impact philosophy. Let's start with I. And I is for innovate. But innovate isn't about technology, about a lot of the things we've heard, but everyone who has stepped on this stage has talked about your role personally, the people side of the business. So innovate, in this case, actually stands for innovating you and getting self-care to become a priority. This is finally becoming something that we're able to talk about in corporate America, regardless of how big or small your business is. But self-care is just key. In fact, self-care isn't selfish. Giving others what's left of you rather than the best of you, that's selfish. And this resonates so well with me when I think about my wife and my daughter telling me this isn't what we signed up for. Well, of course it wasn't, because when I got home from a full week of travel, I was toast. And so they got me on the weekend where all I wanted to do was recover because I had to go back out on Sunday night on the road. So they got what was left of me. So here's a simple look at a true self-care routine that's easy to remember because all the letters spell self-care. And I don't have time to go through all of these, so I'll just highlight a couple of them. The first one is silence. And only because self-care starts with the letter S, I couldn't call it melf-care because that just gets awkward. So silence actually does stand for meditation. How many of you in this room have a meditation practice? There's a few hands. I'd love for those few hands to look at for the people who don't have their hands up and say, you too can be a great meditator. Because I imagine some of you who didn't have your hands up for this thought very much like I did when I heard the term meditation. Are you telling me that you've got a process that takes all the nonsense and craziness that's going up in here and helps me control that? Nah, no way. No way. In fact, I'll take it a step further. While you sit there with your legs crossed and your hands up and you're doing your mantra, I'm going to be working. I'm going to outwork you. So go ahead and take your 8, 10, 15 minutes a day doing your meditation, because that's 8 to 10, 15 minutes a day that I'll be working while you're not. And if I extrapolate that out over the course of the year, something would tell me that I've done more and accomplished more than you have. But I had to pivot and learn what meditation was actually about. Meditation isn't the control of your thoughts. Meditation is the acknowledgement of all of your thoughts, so that you can let thoughts that don't matter come and go, and allows you to focus on the thoughts that actually allow you to take you where you want to go. Let me say that again, because this is important. Meditation is not about the control of your thoughts. Most of you would agree, there is nothing in this world that's going to control all the craziness that's going on up here, right? But meditation allows you to acknowledge all of your thoughts so that you can begin to determine and focus on the thoughts that actually help you advance to get it as to where you want to go. Affirmations. When I say affirmations, most of you are familiar with Stuart Smiley from Saturday Night Live. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And as much as I used to laugh at that and think that's awkward, it's actually pretty good, right? Affirmations is actually taking, now that you've been able to meditate, acknowledge thoughts, and let certain thoughts go, when your mind hears words, so affirmations is out loud, you begin to truly construct what it is that you want your life to look like. It's awkward if you've never done it before. It's really awkward sitting and having a conversation with yourself, telling about what you want your life to look like today, next week, next month, 3 years, 5 years from now. But the auditory process of that, once you've learned how to meditate and you can take those thoughts, is absolutely powerful, because when you combine that with what I call the red car theory, I think there's a scientific term for this, but I can never pronounce it right or never remember it. But how many of you ever bought a car, and on your way home you notice the 30,000 other people that drive the exact same car? Same color, same everything. Now, we're all smart enough to recognize that those people didn't just go buy that car at the same time, but because you brought that car, it's now at the forefront of, it's went from your subconscious to your conscious. You're aware of it, so you see it all the time. And the power of being able to take your thoughts, acknowledge, and let certain thoughts go to focus, to have your mind hear out loud where it is that you want to go, and then being able to zero in the focus, imagine the things that you can achieve. Last one I want to hit upon is laugh. Does anybody here schedule laughter into their calendar? Yeah, we typically don't, right? But the power, the science behind what laughter does, maybe, I don't know all of you all that well, but has anyone ever been on a Zoom call, I think it's called, right? Zoom call over the past few years, right? They're sometimes awkward, sometimes they're great, but I'll tell you, I keep a copy of a video, and I'm going to have to ask the guys to cue this up in just a minute. I keep this video on my desktop because oftentimes I'll get off a Zoom call frustrated or just going, wow, did I just waste 30 minutes of my time? Did I need to be on this? All those kind of things. And when you do that, you have to be able to release that anxiety, those feelings that go along with it, and laughter is the key to that. So let me key up this video if I can.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here on time. Paul? Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Tyler.
Sorry I'm late. Having a hard time connecting.
1 second. Paul's having a sound issue.
I can't hear you.
Try adjusting your output settings.
Can you hear me?
It's the gear icon.
Tyler, are you on hotel Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Never mind, I got it. I just had to change a few settings.
Great. Maybe we can get started then. Oh, great.
I think your mic is picking up your speakers.
My mic?
Do you have headphones?
You want me to put them on?
No, I want you to smell them. No, I want you to put them on. Hey, Beth.
Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to download a new version of the platform.
You should plan extra time for the updates. There's pretty much one every time.
Sounds like someone just joined.
Hey guys, it's John. I had to call in. I'm stuck in traffic. Have I missed anything yet?
No, it would have been nice for you to join the rest of us, but we'll see you when you get home. All right, while everyone is here, finally, Tyler, do you have that financial report?
Well, it's been the last few weeks updating our books, and I got some great news for you. Schedule from this point last year. We had a great Q1.
We lost Tyler, I think.
Am I frozen?
Hey, Trip, I think we lost Tyler.
Yeah, I know, we lost Tyler.
Hey guys, it sounded like Tyler was cutting out.
We know, John. All right, while we wait on Tyler, why don't we go over all of the reports from... Beth, are you with us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone, I know some of you have to leave soon, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the queries before. Okay, excuse me. My wife's out of town this week. Daddy's, I'm so sorry. Okay, you just spilt grape juice on the carpet. Daddy is in a meeting. Tyler, can you go over the numbers one more time, please?
I thought Beth had an adjustment. Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, that's my iTunes.
Hey guys, hang on. I'm gonna join in. Hey, what platform are you guys on? Skype? FaceTime?
It's in the invite.
Oh, never mind. I see it. It's right there in the invite.
Okay, now I can see everybody.
Let's reschedule and let's just do a regular old conference call, okay? Paul, can you have David send out the 9-digit passcode?
I heard you.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later. Like a lot of video conference calls, this one sucked. But it wouldn't have had we been using Zoom. Zoom will host over 4 billion meeting minutes
We can
over
kill
the
this
next
part.
year alone. And that's because it's not only easy.
So I don't know how you felt about the first 20 minutes or so of this presentation, but I can tell you exactly how every one of you felt for the last 3.5 minutes, right? Find something, it's so easy, YouTube channels, comedians, whatever makes you laugh, save it on your desktop, and when you can feel that anxiety building, the frustration coming out within your day, because you will, it's hard to be angry after watching that, right? Coming off a Zoom call. So self-care routine is important. So silence, exercise, laughter, focus, composition, affirmations, reading, and educate. If you read for just 10 minutes a day, I think it tells you that you can finish like 32 books a year. Imagine what you can learn from that, or maybe reading for you is a way to get out of work as you're reading books that take you into a different land, and education. You have never been at a point in any of our lives where the ability to learn something was at your fingertips like it is today. So each day, find a way to put this into your routine. And when you do that, you actually unlock what is the most important part of self-care, which is your sleep. We can get into debates about how long sleep you should have and all that kind of stuff, but your quality of sleep is actually the #1 factor in your self-care routine. And I've proven to myself, my family, and those I've worked with, by implementing a self-care routine like this, you improve the quality of sleep, which just improves the quality of life. So from an action perspective, if you've never meditated before, I would challenge you to download an app called Headspace. They do a tremendous job, this is where I started, of teaching you how to meditate. If you're in the meditation space already and you want to try something different, Calm is another great alternative. And if you want to level up, anyone familiar with Kirk Cousins on his Netflix special, when he was sitting in his car and he had his headband on and he was meditating, that's called a Muse headband. It's actually what I use today, and it's great for people like us because it actually gives you the data about how you're performing. So you can actually measure how much you're improving your meditation practices over time. Jumping into M is for mindfulness. I love this quote because it's reassuring to me. Successful people have doubts and successful people have worries. They just don't let their feelings stop them. So when we talk about mindfulness, we are talking about the fixed and a growth mindset. Fixed mindset, people believe that intelligence is static. Things like success or failure is determined by your abilities. It's fine the way it is, don't need to change. Boy, if we haven't heard that today, well, that's kind of the way it's always been, right? Frustration might lead you to give up, or even this thought process that it's easy for them, they were born smart. I stick to what I know. The opposite side of this is this growth mindset. And growth mindsets believe that intelligence can be developed. Failure is an opportunity for growth. Challenges help me grow. Effort and attitude, that's what determines my abilities. I wonder how they did that, and you try to figure out how. Or many of you sit in your company and you go, is this the best that we can do? And how can we improve it? And the good news is whether you already have a growth mindset by nature or whether you tend to fall into the fixed mindset, a growth mindset can be built. Meditation is a tremendous way to get a growth mindset. A gratitude practice. Science says that you can't be angry, sad, or frustrated at the same time that you're expressing gratitude. So bringing gratitude into a practice. We heard it a couple times. I think Dirk mentioned it before. Andrew mentioned it. Stepping out of our comfort zone. Doing something that we're not accustomed to will help you build a growth mindset. And certainly something that everyone in this room, I'm sure, has goals and objectives, regardless of whether you're good at tracking them, not good at tracking them, or whether you wait 8 months into a calendar year to establish them. Goals and objectives are important, and tracking them, measuring them, and rewarding yourself for them is key. And last but not least, just the practice of thinking positive. Be the optimist. Find where the opportunity is, and that will help you develop your growth mindset. So the action item for mindset is all about awareness. You just need to understand where in this path you fall, and the one way to do that is to engage your inner circle and ask for their feedback. My wife will absolutely let me know when I'm falling on one side of that equation versus the other. That's a dangerous thing to ask your spouse. I challenge you to get an inner circle that's not your spouse and have them share that with you as well. Moving on to the P. P is for productivity. Anybody know like someone in their realm that just seems to get more done than everyone else? And you're like, man, do they have like an extra couple hours a day? How do they only sleep 2 hours? How do they get it all done? Well, there's a lot of different ways to improve your productivity, and a lot of them are different strategies. Some of them are probably things that you've used or are familiar with. The Pomodoro technique. Anybody eat a frog every morning? Right? Doing that hard task first thing in the morning. So there's a lot of things that go here, but of the people that I have networked with, learned from, who I would call my inner circle and mentors, there really is only one answer to productivity that I've seen every one of them use. And it is time blocking. Show me what's on your calendar, show me what you've scheduled into your day, and I'll tell you what's important. Take you back to that conversation in that dining room with my wife when she was saying that this isn't what we signed up for. Oh, babe, when we move to New England, it's going to free up time. I won't be in the corporate office. We'll be able on date nights. We'll take the kids here, there, all these things, right? But if you opened up my calendar, none of those things were in there. So all of these techniques can work within a time-blocking routine, but you have to learn to protect and use your calendar as your key asset. I feel like we're getting along pretty well. You guys have been pretty interactive. So I thought what I'd do now is give you a sneak peek into my calendar. Anybody want to see? If you don't want to see it, tell me. I'll just skip ahead. But if you want to see it, maybe. So here is what I call my ideal week. Every week throughout the year is set up the same for me. This one happens to go from when I wake up to my first break of the day. This one goes from that break into early afternoon into evening. And yes, I schedule my sleep inside my calendar. Now, the first thing everyone's looking, I know, you're going, oh, good for you if you're able to work on that schedule, because you don't know what it's like. Oh, I know. Because the first thing you're going to do to this thing is blow it up every Monday morning, right? And that's okay. Because it's not about being able to master and have this thing work out every day. It's about being able to address the fire drill and then come back to something that makes sense. So having the ability to time block, the key to time blocking is not to take every task that you have, but to take all of the things that you're responsible for in your role and bucketize them and scheduling those bucket times for that. In fact, if you saw, I have flex time scheduled in my day. Those are for all the fire drills that are going to come out and happen. And sometimes my morning time might have to get moved to my flex time. It's okay, but having your ideal week laid out really helps you start to establish what a key productivity routine looks like. So my takeaway on this, go ahead and draft your ideal week with the knowledge of it's never going to work this way. It just won't. But when you draft it and you continue to review it and fine-tune it and put that into your calendar every week, every month, and review it Sunday night before you get started, you'll have a better chance of meeting those things on your line. And protect your time. A is for attitude. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. Attitude determines how well you do it. We've talked about self-care. We've talked about mindfulness, having a growth mindset. We even talked about just the simplicity of just being positive. But if you truly want to unlock your attitude, there is something about believing in yourself. And I inherently thought I probably believed in myself. That's why I was doing so well in my corporate career. But as I reflected that weekend in there, I remember thinking to myself, I don't know how many jobs, but boy, I just got another new job. I'm not sure I learned everything I needed to know from the last job. And I also made the mistake that my company was going to give me all the tools to succeed in my next job. Right? Does that sound familiar? And we can have that argument about what the role of the company is, but I'm going to tell you that you're the biggest advocate for yourself. So you have to take ownership of your own development. And when you do that, you will begin to believe in yourself and not look to outside forces like your company to tell you how good you are. When you do these 4 things, you unleash the superpower when it comes to attitude, and that is discipline. Now, some people might argue with me whether discipline is actually an attitude or not. But discipline, the ability to stay on track with the things that are most important and the things that you've deemed important to your work, to your spouse, to your family, right? That action of discipline is truly about an attitude, because it is when you choose to do what you do based on when no one is around you to help you make that decision. So I would argue that discipline is the superpower attitude. So my action for you on this, I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning. Begin to schedule, track, and reward your self-care time. If you hear nothing else from the self-care, I think it's just extremely important. It was the biggest shift that I made coming out of that 48 hours in that basement, which sounds awkward because my family was telling me something was wrong between us, and I left focusing on me. C is for cultivate. We've heard this a little bit already. Eventually, everything connects. People's, ideas, objects. The quality of the connection is the key to quality, per se. In John Gordon, a mentor of mine, in his book, The Power of Positive Team, he talks about cultivating connection. Connecting is essential because you'll never have commitment without connection. Here's some fun facts about the way people connect. 55% is what they see, which is why I allow my wife to pick out my outfit every time I go on stage. 38% is the way we say it. Only 7% of the way you connect with your family, friends, and coworkers is actually what we say, which means 90% of the impression that we convey has nothing to do with what we actually say. The worst slide of any professional speaker when they throw this up there and they think about all the time we've spent about what we were going to say during these times, right? Ways to connect: visually, intellectually, verbally, emotionally, all things that we're familiar with. But we tend to think when we're on a Zoom call that visually isn't quite as important. I might argue it's even more important. Intellectually, right? Alignment to the words, your body language. Verbally, think before you speak. Keep it simple, stupid, all those fun things. And emotionally, I think the transformation that I've been on since that 48 hours was I began to have empathy for others, not just the sympathy for myself. Does that make sense? I began to have empathy for others and what they were going through versus I wanted the sympathy. You know how hard I'm working? You know all the things I'm doing? You know, it was all about this. And last but not least, become a master questionnaire. You have to learn how to ask questions to get to the root of the things that you're wanting to understand. But if you do this, don't be one of these. And all of you know who they are, because if an asshole were to pick up their phone and call you, it's the person that when it rings, you stare at it. There goes one. You stare at it again. It's like 4 or 5 rings before you decide whether or not you have the energy to take that call, because you know what's coming. They got a problem. They want you to solve it. You're going to give them the solution, and they're going to do nothing with it, right? Don't be that person. So on an action, this is all about practice. Learning how to connect, cultivate connections. Begin to identify your connections. The people within your inner circle, your coworkers, your family, you have to understand how they connect. Again, 48 hours in that basement, again, to realize all the expectations I had and all the things that I wanted from them, I wasn't spending time realizing and recognizing what was important to them. And the last one, T, is for team. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So team is a little bit different. Because when we often think about team, we think about the people that we work with. Most of the time, we don't get to pick those people, although oftentimes we probably wish we could, right? Our family, hopefully you made the right choice there, so that's a positive. But what I'm talking about your team really is about this networking aspect of creating this inner circle. And maybe some of you are familiar with the FEW, or the FEW approach. And I talk about this approach in terms of building your transformational team, the people that are going to take you from where you are today to where you want to go tomorrow. And that often can't be your family. That often can't be the people that you work with on a daily basis. So the FEW approach is pretty simple. Networking goes like this. Fact, what do you do for work? Then emotion. What's the favorite part of your job? Why? What is it about your job that makes you like it so much? I think for the most part, many of us in this room probably do some sort of this, right? Maybe we haven't really thought about it in this order, so this brings some clarity to it. But this is typically where we stop. Because as we're trying to form our inner circle, that's what? It's about me. I'm trying to find people that are going to help me get to where they want to go. The transformational part of creating an inner circle is this. It's flipping the script of your networking to say, how can I provide some value to help you to continue to achieve your success? That's how you build an inner circle. That's how you build a network. Use this conference, right? Use this conference because there are people here that already know the answers to the struggles that you're dealing with. I promise you. Most of the struggles that we deal with in our work, and oftentimes even in our social and our family life, are problems that other people have gone through and can give you clarity and advice so that you don't make the same mistakes as them. Now, I'll caution you. Just take a quick look around the room of the people in this room. Tonight, when we go to dinner, you'll want to use this technique with the people that are in that room. Otherwise, it becomes really awkward, right? Because you're all asking the same question. What do you do? Oh, what do you do? What? And you're like, oh, this is crazy. But it is a great technique to be able to use conferences like this to find people who have done things, who struggle with the things that you're struggling with to help you take you to that next level. That's a very quick summary of what has created over the last 5 years that we call this impact philosophy. The first time I gave this speech, I ended there. I'm in the back, we're at a networking dinner, and this gentleman comes up to me and he says, Jeff, he goes, hey, I really appreciate it, some great insights. I'm like, oh, what'd you like the best? He's like, how did it go with your wife? Are you like, you guys still together? And I was like, oh, you know what? That's probably a great question. I should probably come full circle when I do this. So let me do that for you. So this is probably more what life looks like. My wife and I just celebrated 25 years of marriage. You can clap for that. That's cool. That's cool. My youngest daughter is down at the Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, and she is absolutely just crushing life. If you could ever write a script for what you want your kid to do in college, my dad didn't do this because I did the opposite, and then I was fortunate enough to have a daughter that did it. She's making films. She's starring in movies. She just raised $700 to produce her first film, so now she says, Dad, I'm a movie producer worth hundreds of dollars, right? It's pretty cool. So she's killing life. My oldest daughter is now married. Back in February, they had their first child, so this is a picture of my wife. We are now known as Gigi and J-Pops. So we are now grandparents, which is exciting. So if I go back and reflect to those 48 hours in that basement, had I not reflected upon myself and the things that I needed to change and embrace on my own, we never would have made it to here. My last action, I have sailed through a ton of information, a ton of ideas, strategies, all the things, the philosophies. Probably didn't get them all. I would love nothing more to have a one-on-one conversation with you, your teams, your organizations about these. So please find a way to connect with me. Here's every way you can connect with me: social, phone, email, whatever you want to do. And I would just challenge you to remember that if you slow down and you avoid what is burnout, you will have the time to learn the skills, develop the habits, create the processes, and you can achieve greater and faster results. Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate it.